Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Spoiler Warning Podcast. This is review number 783 with a review of Flow. I'm Christopher Schnese.
And I'm Stephen Miller.
And if you're joining us for the first time, the Spoiler Warning Podcast is a weekly film review program. Each week on the show, we're going to dive into a bit, discuss, and argue over the latest films coming to a theater near you. This week, we already had a review of The Order, and now we are talking about an animated film called Flow. So, Stephen, before we get started, just wanted to ask you, I assume we both saw this at the Alamo.
Mm-hmm.
When I saw it, at least when I booked it, it was a kid-friendly screening, which I guess makes sense because it's an animated film. Mm-hmm. Do you think the average child that might be brought to this film has the patience for this film?
Well, Chris, I have to ask you, were there children in your screening?
There were children in my screening. I did not notice how they were responding to it because I had a bunch of adults responding to this film.
Well, I was seated directly next to a child who was terrified every time he thought the cat was in danger. Very loudly. Cried a lot. So patience, yes. Emotional fortitude, maybe not. I definitely spent the movie repeatedly thinking, like, I get why you brought your kid to this. I'm not blaming you. It's not like it is being advertised in a way to make you think a kid might not be able to handle it. But, like, this isn't for kids.
Yeah.
Why? I wish you hadn't brought him. Sorry, no offense to the little kid, but it wasn't your movie. But it wasn't right for you.
Yeah. No, I definitely, like, I knew that this was a film that was going to have no dialogue and was just going to be animals in nature doing animal and nature stuff. But I didn't, for some reason, I didn't even bother to think that this would be a film people would bring children to. Like, I never saw, like, when we watched the trailer during this recording, this will be the first time I've ever seen the trailer. I had absorbed from the ether that it was a film with no dialogue.
You never saw the trailer? You must have not been going to Alamo a lot recently. I've seen the trailer, like, 6 times, I think.
I have not seen it.
Wow.
So I guess I got lucky. I'll find out now when I watch the trailer now. But yeah, I just couldn't have contemplated anybody bringing a kid to this, and I kind of wanted to ask parents when I was leaving, like, oh, what did they think? But I was trying to get home to receive a package, so I darted out as soon as the movie ended. So
I can tell you from my experience of one child, he ate a hamburger and enjoyed the hamburger a lot. He was very into the movie, actually. He just, every time anything scary was happening, he started crying. And by the end, the last, like, 20 minutes, he was just, like, being consoled by his mom and his dad while he said, like, what's going to happen? What's going to happen?
Yeah.
So it's a tough ride.
Yeah, there was one kid that I saw get, like, a young child get carried by his father out of the theater, but I'm pretty sure that the dad wanted to see the film and the kid was asleep during the first half and then woke up and he had to take the kid out. So I don't think the kid was worried about the cat in this case.
I did watch other kids getting taken out, so it seems like there weren't a lot of successful child viewing experiences that I saw.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, you were the only one sitting in the one boat. So the other kids were just getting taken out left and right.
That's true. Yeah.
Anyway.
I have to say, I blame Alamo for labeling it kid-friendly. Like, they didn't have to do that. If they just didn't have that label on it, I think a lot fewer people would have made that mistake. So kind of on them.
Yeah. Like, a parent opens up the Alamo app and it's like, well, we already saw Wicked. Oh, there's an animated movie and it's kid-friendly.
But the Alamo programmers seem to believe this will resonate with kids because almost all of the trailers were, like, kid-friendly animated movies. I don't remember what they were now, but it felt like they were all kind of, like, upbeat and happy and silly, and I was like, I don't think I'm about to watch, like, an upbeat, happy, silly kid movie.
Yeah.
So they didn't know what to do with this.
Cool. Well,
honestly, I think this should have been billed more like Sasquatch Sunset, which I don't think you ever saw, but similarly wordless movie that you know right away is, like, not necessarily meant for kids to watch.
Yeah. Is that available for streaming now?
Probably.
It has to be, right?
It was like January that I watched that, or probably later. Maybe it was a Sundance movie, but it's been out for a long time.
Yeah. I must have missed that one. I do got to see it. I did want to see it, but I think you told me I would hate it.
Yeah, I think you might hate it, but we'll find out after we review this movie, maybe.
Yeah, we'll find out after we review this movie and after we do our top 10 of the year.
Right.
When I surprise you with my number one Sasquatch. All right.
This is a movie where Jesse Eisenberg just really impressed me with how in depth with human emotion he is.
Yeah, and I'm not talking about a real pain.
Exactly.
All right. Should we do it, Steven?
Yep.
We are going to play the dialogue list trailer for Flow. And then at some point, maybe at the entire duration of the trailer, we're going to come back and give you a review. All right. So that was the trailer for Flow. It is the story of a cat at the end of the world in nature, teaming up with some other animals to go somewhere. Steve Miller, what did you think of Flow?
So I was just looking up in my inbox to verify that I did indeed have a ticket to see Flow at Cannes on my birthday in the morning. And I missed it because I was finishing up a piece about Honora for Decoding Everything. So I skipped it. And I wished I had seen it at Cannes. I don't even know exactly what to do with Flow from an artistic perspective. I'm not an expert when it comes to animation. In general, I don't trust myself to really gauge visual arts like that. But the animation style is rough. You know, like it is not intricate. It doesn't look inherently beautiful. When I saw the trailer repeatedly at Alamo, I was like, what is this PlayStation cutscene movie that I'm watching? And why are people raving about it? But I actually found the experience of watching it to be kind of wonderful and puzzling, and just it is unlike anything I've experienced before in a theater. And I don't know what to do with that information because I don't exactly know how to heap praise on it, because it is very, very simple. Like you just described, the cat, the end of the world happens. I think we can say a flood happens. I only heard that trailer you were listening to. I didn't get to see it, but I assume water was involved and a boat was involved. And it's just kind of this like wordless, homeward bound type, like we are surviving and I'm going to meet different characters and none of them are going to talk, but there are still kind of going to be lessons about how the world works and what type of people there are and what type of people there aren't and who should you trust and what is the downside in a thing that is also very simple. And it isn't like animals are communicating through gestures and they're trying to make us understand what they think. It just is like letting us sit and contemplate this journey through nature. And it isn't like always a riveting journey, but it also is never boring at all. Like again, the kids were not bored from what I could tell. It just is so simple. It's almost like a parable, or just like a very, very, very simple story with one or two big surprises folded in, like some elements that I didn't see coming, where the director is kind of intentionally going off the rails a little bit and provoking you. But yeah, I just found it to be a kind of beautiful, meditative experience. And I feel like I would have felt that even more if I were like sleep deprived in France, having no idea that I was about to watch an animated movie at all, let alone a wordless animated movie from Latvia about a cat. So yeah, I was into this movie. I don't know whether to land on I love this movie, or I just like I admire the unique experience I had is something that I'm always going to remember. But man, it was something. That's for sure. How did you feel about Flow?
Yeah, I think this film is great.
Yeah.
The only way I can describe it sounds like I'm complaining about it. Mm-hmm. Like, this film feels like the most glorious tech demo you've ever seen. Mm-hmm. And you talked about the, like, you talked about the animation style being a little bit rough, right? And it's visually a little bit rough. There are objects that have simple geometry to them. And like there's a scene where creatures on a boat roll a top across the surface, the deck of the boat. That top moves across the surface, but the texture doesn't actually rotate with it as it rolls. It's just simple models. There are scenes where cats take a bite out of a fish and no part of the fish comes out, right? It's like simple geometry, simple textures. But if you look at just the individual little micro movements of the cat, like the way the ear will just do its own thing while it's looking around, like there was a lot of care and effort that went into sinking their heart into animating this cat in a realistic cat way and having it behave cat-like. And it's like watching it was just incredibly impressive. And it's like the objects that were once owned by humans have this, it's still stylized, but it's very, very gritty, real look. The animals have this soft sort of untextured look to them. They look like simple geometry models a little bit. The surface of the water is amazingly
of course, yes. That is by far the most like beautifully, but I'll let you continue, but like I should say, like the animation is quote rough if you're like nitpicking all the details, but it is like intentionally having some things that are very low and some things that are very high, and it is like combining styles in a very interesting way.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And if like one of the things I was kind of poking around looking for videos, and it's like if you told me this film started by creating a game engine and then shot the entire film within the game engine, because this film has that handheld shot style, right? Yeah. It feels like a camera is always being held. Now the camera makes movements that you could never do if you were actually holding a camera. So I don't think they necessarily did like a James Cameron style. I'm holding a physical digital camera and I'm moving it in physical digital space and like trying to film it in real time. I assume they just applied like a little hand jiggle plug into it or whatever, but it still has that feeling that you are an observer in the physical space. The camera moves into cracks inside the boat that like a real person holding a camera couldn't move into, but you still have that intimate feel of the camera following these animals through this environment. In addition to feeling like it could have been shot inside of a game engine, this film feels like Eco or Shadow of the Colossus or The Last Guardian.
I was going to say Shadow of the Colossus as the touch point of just like the feeling of awe that I had while watching it. Yeah,
it's like you are in this space that is largely uninhabited, but you are moving through it and doing these sort of like you are moving from one location to another to achieve like this goal. And this whole film is a movement, picking up stragglers along the way and moving to the highest peak that you can see, which is so game world logic.
Yeah.
But this feels like the most beautiful meditative game that you would have played, like a Journey or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And I the whole time I was like, oh my God, like usually I get annoyed when I can see strings and stuff like that. But in this, I loved looking at the strings and thinking about it and saying what it's doing and feeling the progression of the little mini vignettes that you get as you travel from place to place. And this, like, this is a whole, like you said, Homeward Bound, but like, what's the dinosaur movie? The kid animated
Land Before Time.
Land Before Time. This is like a Land Before Time of like, you know, we have to get to where the green is, right? Except for technically opposite. But you know, I just really, really loved it. And then like there was a moment, man, maybe I'll just bleep the word, but there's a moment of that happens.
Right. That's what I was hinting at, of the one moment when the director, which I found completely stunning and beautiful because it is so unlike the rest of what happens.
Yeah. And it just like, I'm like, fuck yeah. I'm like, yes, of course that's what happened. And it's just like, you start to wonder about who these different creatures are in the world. Does this have some sort of significance? Why does it feel like there were humans around, but then one human that's really obsessed with cats and makes giant cats, but then there's also a human statue in the world? And I'm like, I just kept thinking about what happened here being this world. What is going on? What is the cyclical nature of this? Is that what flow is? Like, you know, like there's so much stuff in this that just makes you think and sit with it. And like you talked about, like being kind of in awe of what you're saying. And it's like, yeah, it's just, this is a beautiful film that takes you on a beautiful journey that just lets you sit in it and think about it and wonder what these different characters mean to different people. And it's like the people who worked on this film, obviously it was a labor of love for them.
Right.
But it feels like I said, it feels like it was kind of like, they built the universe first and then tried to think of what stories they wanted to tell in it. And I could easily have been turned off by that, but instead it drew me in and it made me like really happy for the experience that I had with it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad to know that you were enchanted by it. Like I really just feel kind of stunned in the sense of, I think it was beautiful and great. And I'm just like, what did I watch? And I was going to bring up Shadow of the Colossus, which I'm not a person who has played many games in my life, but that is one game that I remember playing and finding like kind of indescribably beautiful to play, of just this feeling of like, I am in this like vast expanse of a world and I am small and I'm moving, but then occasionally something majestic and terrifying can happen. And like this movie has that. It has a giant flood. It has whales. It has like and there's a whale scene in the trailer, at least the trailer that I saw before every Alamo screening that I watched.
It's a whale breaching.
Yes, a whale breaching. And in trailer mode, maybe because like I wasn't attuned to it yet, like it takes a little bit to get in the rhythm of the movie, I watched that and was like, what the fuck is this movie? Like, why are people saying this is amazing? I'm just seeing like a kind of only like low geometry whale jump into some water. Like, I don't get it. Like, what is it? When it actually happens in the movie, I was like, holy shit, there's a whale above me. You know, it's like the movie tricks you. You can see the strings like you described, but the movie like makes you enter its own wavelength after a while. And it's almost like what I remember about How to Train Your Dragon, where How to Train Your Dragon has this progression where for a while we just have people on the ground who are fighting dragons. Then, you know, he meets Toothless, but everyone is on the ground and it makes you wait for it. And so the small emotions become what the movie is about. And then he's fucking flying. And the feeling of like being in the air after you have trained yourself for so long to be attuned to the tiny gestures instead was magnificent. And And this movie kind of felt like that, where like it trained me to be okay with the low polygon mesh and just admiring the way the cat is being animated and the emotions that the cat is bringing and everything. And then when a magical thing occurs, you have just kind of a sense of wonder because you've bought into this universe, and now medium-sized things feel huge, right?
Yeah.
It's just a really, really interesting magic trick that the movie pulls off.
Yeah. Speaking of being like brought into the world, is half the movie I was just like, somebody give this cat a damn fish.
I felt very hungry on behalf of the cat. And my plain popcorn took way too long to come, so I was hungry for most of the movie too.
So you got to get in there early, Steven, so you can put your order in so it's there before you're ready.
Yeah. Yeah, I really just found this movie very captivating and interesting, and I'm so glad I saw it in theaters, because I just don't know at home, even in headphones. I just think that the feeling of watching it on a big screen is part of the allure, and I don't even... Normally, the experience that I watched it would be very subpar, because there was literally a kid crying and talking next to me for a lot of the most beautiful moments. The kid's like, what's going to happen to the cat, you know?
Did you turn to him and say, hey, kid, you're dead in this movie's world?
Yeah. But I was so into the movie, like, I was aware of the kid. It isn't like I tuned them out, but I was just like, I get it, buddy. We're on this amazing ride together. Like, I don't know. It just put me in a trance in a way that I really enjoyed.
Yeah. I will say it does make me wish that this film was shot inside of a game engine, because it means that I would actually be able to watch it maybe eventually inside of that engine in a VR headset, which would also be pretty amazing to be able to just kind of be in the space, sit on the boat and watch the whole film play out from the boat. Would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
We good?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't feel like the kind of movie where we could obviously go into the plot of like the one dog versus the other dogs and the bird, but I kind of feel like, why use a bunch of words when the movie is so compelling just as like a silent journey, you know?
Yeah.
It kind of feels like not worth digging into all the pieces of it.
Cool. Well, what we do have to dig into is our verdict, Stephen. So if you're going to give us a must-see, recommend with a caveat, wait for rental, pass with a caveat, or must avoid, what would you give it?
I'm giving it a must-see. Again, I don't even fully know what it is or how it would translate, to other people, if it was just the state of mind I was in when I watched it. But whatever feeling I had was magical, and I hope other people get that same feeling. And I'm also very curious to see other movies by Gints Zilbalodis. Apologies for the pronunciation, because I wonder if he plays with form a lot the way he does here, and it's just such an interesting singular thing. And yeah, it's a really special movie.
So I did see a quick clip from him on YouTube when I was getting the trailer. Apparently his previous stuff, he was just like a solo maker of things, and because he was talking about how different it is to work by himself versus having not hundreds, but like whatever it was, like a ton of people that he is now responsible for. But yeah, for me, must see as well. Beautiful film, surprising film, and yeah, I think it is a really super interesting watch. Yeah, so that is it for a review of Flow. Stephen Miller, if people want to find you that the week, where can they do that?
People can find me at Threads or Blue Sky at sdavidmiller or sdavidmiller.com.
People can find me at ChristopherInRealLife.com or ChristopherIRL on a number of social platforms. You can find the podcast over at thespoilerwarning.com, where you can get a bunch of the back episodes of the show. If you want to subscribe to the show, you can do so on Overcast, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or wherever podcasts are found. If you want to know when the episodes go live, you can follow us at twitter.com/spoilerwarning, facebook.com/thespoilerwarning, or instagram.com/thespoilerwarning. If you want to get a hold of us directly, you can send an email to fans@thespoilerwarning.com, or you can use the contact form on our site. Music for this episode will come from a track selected from artlist.io, so hopefully you're enjoying that. We did it, Stephen. Another week, another set of episodes. We're getting to the end of the year. We'll have to figure out what we pack in, and then eventually, sometime after New Year's, we're going to come back with our end of year recap episode. Have you started?
I have started thinking about pairings, at least, and I have started kind of cramming the things in my to watch list slowly, just to make sure that I have, a decent number to choose from. It's always going to be chaotic, but I feel like every year, I feel like it is shaping up to have a lot of options now. They always kind of reveal themselves late in the year. Like obviously there are a handful from all around, but I feel like more is rising to the surface, where now I think it'll, like every year, wind up being hard to narrow it down to 10 rather than hard to find 10.
Yeah, my plan this weekend is to start going through a list of everything that came out and figure out what I actually saw, because some stuff we saw like just a few months ago feels like it has to have been last year.
Definitely.
But yeah. Anyways, thank you all for listening. And we will see you in the next one. Bye.